Hello, everyone. Glad you're able to join us tonight, and I want to appreciate everybody for being here. Um, as also for our mods, we still have Nightbot out there, which we want to thank everyone that, as far as using the prompts and everything, it's working out well. We want to thank all our mods for that, and also a little bit of housekeeping as we get into this new area. If there's suspects, once again, no names, no initials. We don't want to influence anyone out there that may have some key information on the Idaho Four murders. And so let's just, if you have any information, tip it in, let them know, and let the law enforcement handle it the best that they can handle. We're going to be talking about the targeting and were they targeted, when did they become targeted, and who was targeted, and things that we can learn from this, and what we need to be having situational awareness, and is there stalking or what was going on that possibly could have led to this event for these children. And they're college age kids, but they're still children. They have parents, and they were loved. And we have this monster out there that has destroyed not only these four lives, but these families. And so we have to look at that and be respectful and chat and everything as we continue on. But with that being said, we'll get started in this.
Wait.
Uh-oh.
Blue light special.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah.
This will do nicely.
Thank you for upgrading and everything. We appreciate all our members and everything because it allows us to do a lot of things towards our code cases and for our Cyclops system for missing children and murdered children. And we just want to thank everybody for that.
All right, you ready?
We are ready. All right. Always, a little brief bio. This is Steve, and I'm Steve. I'm retired law enforcement, 20 years of service. Started off my career in the jail, worked road, went into investigations, and had all different types of training across the spectrum of law enforcement, from SWAT to becoming a state certified crime scene tech, which helped my investigative career immensely. And I've investigated everything from small crimes, thefts, burglaries, up to homicides. I retired, and after I retired, I became aware of the true crime world, the web sleuths, and decided I wanted to become an ambassador for law enforcement, and started this channel. And we're expanding, and we're growing, and we're moving into new areas and assisting these families in cold cases, which I want to thank everyone out there that supports us and allows us to do that. All right. These are the college kids that were murdered. You had Madison, Kaylee, Ethan, and Zana that were murdered at their residence in Moscow, Idaho. And the circumstances that led to their murder is, we're going on several weeks now. It's been unknown who's a suspect. Law enforcement has come in and made that some people have been cleared, and then they've come back and restated that they may at any point go back and re-interview some of the or people that have been cleared, and that's normal. The chaos of the investigations for that first days and weeks that goes on, and until everything gets focused and everyone understands the path of these investigations, because there's a lot going on this case. You don't have the victimology of one victim. We have four victimologies of four individuals that had lives, not only their collegiate life, but family life, friends, and all of those friends and everything in their life is, everyone has their own orbit of what's going on out there in their daily life. And so law enforcement, they have a lot of information to gather. And there's a lot of information that not only when they're doing the victimology about who their friends were, who did they call routinely, text messaging, what was their digital footprint for the days and weeks leading up to the night that they were murdered. And so what law enforcement is having to do is not an easy task. And now they'll have a lot of resources they'll be able to bring into it. And this is what law enforcement trains to do, is to go out there, organize this stuff, conduct these investigations so that they can bring justice to these people. And that's what they're going to do. It's not a simple task. A lot of people will be able to rush to judgment whenever when mistakes are made. But I challenge anyone to go out there and put your boots on the ground and do it from the start, and you'll see how easily it is to get overwhelmed if you don't have a strategy and you don't follow that strategy and you investigate it and do certain tasks in an orderly fashion. And that's not something that just comes over in just an hour or two. I mean, so it's not like the TV. I keep saying that, but everybody knows there's not anyone out there in law enforcement that has any channel that will tell you anything different that other than this. It's not a TV show. Sometimes it takes days, weeks, and years to come up with a suspect. You may have a lot of persons of interest, but when you start narrowing the scope and you start gathering information, it takes a while to do some of these things. But we're going to be talking about the night of. We're not going to be going so much into their total victimology of their life experiences. We're going to be looking at the night of, their movements, and where could they have crossed, that if they did cross the path of someone, and is it someone new in their life that they met that night versus someone that is a friend or acquaintance, classmate, that may have been at their residence before or attended a party with them that night, or may have seen them at some point that night. And this individual may have targeted them, and versus a stranger that is new in the town and is at a certain location or a certain party, or, because there's a lot of different things going on in these campuses at any one time and within this community. It's a large community, as you'll see. But the diagram of the house, of course, is a 3-floor house. You had the parking level where there's 2 kids living on the first floor, and there's 2 apartments there. And then each floor has 2 individual like bedrooms, 2nd floor, 3rd floor, and all of this. And as you go around the residence, you can see that, this front door has a keypad on it, which may be something that when they go out and they look at this house, what is the household history of security measures taken? Is this door always locked? And are there separate passcodes for each individual using it? And that would tell a lot. If it's just one single passcode that everyone uses, you probably won't get that much information. But if each individual that lives in this house has a separate code that they have to use to get in and out of the house, that might be something that law enforcement would be able to use, of who of the 6 individuals that were in this residence that night that might have had access to that. And they'll check other people that through their victimologies that they may have passed that information along, or and as they do a digital footprint of who routinely come to that house, who routinely used Wi-Fi, or whatever type of data that will come in, because the cell tower data is going to be at, you're looking at a generation of children, college age, that live through the internet. And we have all these devices. And can you imagine the number of devices at any one point that is connecting throughout this community? And it's going to be quite the load and burden for law enforcement to go out and look at and create and try to build that database. And they will. There's a lot of intelligent people out there that will do a lot of different types of algorithms that will do searches, and they'll all come. They'll figure out who, what, where through doing basic investigative and certain tasks. But as you go around, this is from the back side of the residence. But just want to give you an overview around the residence, and you can see different levels, different entry points. Really, the only 2 easy accessible points on this resident is either the lower level, first floor, or the second floor, which goes out into a backyard, and it has direct, easy access. Walk in the back sliding glass door, or there's windows back there. And so that's really the most accessible way to get into the residence. The summary of the case of what the children or these collegiate kids did that night is that, they were at a local bar, and this is Kaylee and Madison, at a place called the Corner Club, and it's on North Main Street. And it's about 1.5 miles from their residence, that if you drove by car. And so they get there, and they're there between 10 and 1:30 or so. And then they were around 1:40, they were seen at a local food vendor called the Grub Truck. And it was located on South Main Street. And we'll be getting into some of this information, and I'll show you a map of everything, and so that you can see the different locations. And I bring this up for the fact that we're going to be talking about if they met a stranger at the bar. And with that stranger, I've been able to track them home. And the answer to that is going to be no. And it's as we get into that, you'll see why. But the investigators have determined that Ethan and Xana were at a party that was just a short distance from their residence on King. And now, if they cross paths with a predator, would that predator be able to track them home? And the answer on that one would be yes. And so we'll be getting into a little bit more of that as we go on. But here's the Corner Club bar they were at. It's just sitting on the edge of Main Street, not a lot of parking. Evidently, this community is, I guess like all college communities, a lot of walking to certain areas. And with that age group, I'm sure there's quite a bit of drinking, and we can't have driving and being responsible as we hope they are, that, they either Uber or taxis or whatever the mode is of having a designated driver, getting these kids home at night. That's what we want. But from here, from the to the right hand side is where the corner nightclub or bar that they were at. And then as you come across that yellow line to the left, that's where the Grub Truck was, about 1,000 feet. And the reason that we can look at this and say that, okay, if they met a stranger at the bar that night, and that stranger decides that, well, I'm going to target these, you have this predator, and he says, this is interesting. They're extremely drunk, extremely intoxicated. And there are some indications that the girls were uneasy before the fact that there's this guy, referenced Jack, that his storyline is that they asked him to assist them getting them to the Grub Truck. Is that something normal that happens in this community? And do they normally ask for escorts and things through certain areas as they're going to walk places? Don't know. Law enforcement will know, and they'll answer that. And I think they've cleared some people, but they'll be answering exactly why they may have asked for someone to escort them a certain distance. But let's say that they had been targeted by a stranger. The stranger may, he's stalking them by foot, and then they get to the Grub Truck. And what happens at the Grub Truck? They make a phone call at somewhere along his lines, and they're going to get picked up by a vehicle. So if you had a stranger that was going to target them, follow them home, then once they get in the vehicle, that takes the stranger unknown to them out of the picture. So you have to fall back on that. If they did cross their killer at this corner bar, is from someone within their orbit of friends that they had, maybe not so much as a friend, but acquaintances that they knew. Most everyone that dies at the hands of killers is from those that they know, and through a lot of different reasons. Natty B, really enjoy your show. Hi from New Zealand. Hey.
Whoa, New Zealand. That's cool.
I may be the first one from New Zealand. You may be the first. You may be the first one from New Zealand. We got some friends in Australia.
Yes.
So we're in that part of the world. Thank you. Appreciate it. So if you take away that they could have been at the bar and might have run across someone that they had been seen by or targeted or for whatever reason or some type of encounter at the bar, it would have to be someone that knows them, knows where they live, and it wouldn't be a stranger that they met that would be able to track them due to the distance they walked to the time that they got in a car. So we go to the next with Dana and Ethan, that they go to a party just within walking distance, 545 feet from where their apartment is. And they attend a gathering there, and then they walk home. And strangely enough, on the timelines, which they're going to be, I think the timelines have been changed several times now, and they're going to be changed again as law enforcement always tries to update those timelines. But the four people, our four college friends, all arrived home relatively close to each other. And those are the four that died. There was two other children or collegiate friends that lived in that residence, and they survived. They were on the first floor. Was that due to that they were already in the residence prior to someone putting the house under surveillance, and they weren't known to be in the residence? Or was when they got home, did these four invite a friend or acquaintance into the residence, that there's no forced entry for the fact that they may have met someone as they walked home or as they arrived or they're on that street? Because we know there's a lot of movement during this time period by a lot of college kids. We have a law enforcement patrol that's in the neighborhood that is being proactive. They're out there in the park less than 300 feet away and doing interactions with these children and checking, making sure, and I call everybody children because they are to me, they're kids to us. And so you got these kids out there walking the streets. You got law enforcement being proactive, less than 300 feet from where these kids were murdered. And so you have an individual that is more likely, and this is my opinion, is a part of this community. And we'll get more into that in just a few minutes of why I believe that he is from that community. And he knows them, and it's not some stranger that's just passing through that rides through town and picks this spot out of all the thousands of kids that go to school here. And it just doesn't make sense that that's what happened. It could be the case, but when you look at the overall picture, and from my perspective and my training, it doesn't appear to be that way. And so we go, and this is just a little bit larger picture overview of where the corner club is to where the grub truck was that the two girls went to. And then, of course, you got Ethan and Xana that were at the Nez Perce house and walked over to King Drive, and the movements that it took them to get there. And so we're talking about over 1.5 miles for two of them. And then we're only talking about a few hundred feet for the other two. And if any two were followed home, I would more likely guess it would have been Ethan and Xana that were then the ones that were been followed home. Now, this is the residence of 1122 King Road. It sets off the road a little bit, back along the wood line. And what stands out about this house? There's nothing that stands out about this house. From trying to profile what would bring you to this house is that you would have to have some type of interaction sometime in your life with the residences of who lived in this residence. And who is that? what interactions in the past have they had? When did they? And the victimology is going to try to identify who that individual is that might have had some type of issue with them, either through some type of romance or domestic past experiences. We just don't know yet. And then as you zoom out, you see that there's more and more homes. There's nothing that stands out about this house. You've got all this community of residential area. And then when you look at the town, and this is just a portion of the town, this isn't the whole town, but you look at all these homes, the highway system is a half a mile away from it, or more. Depends which one of the highway systems you're looking at that comes into this town. It's, so there's nothing that would bring you to this one. It's not that it's next to a bar. It's not that it's next to a large shopping center. This is a area that if you don't know and don't have a reason to be there or in that area, if you don't live there, if you're not a part of that community, you wouldn't select this house just out of nowhere. And so that's why I believe that they were, and a lot of reason law enforcement would tend to think that they're targeted, that, it doesn't match any of the other criteria of anyone of a stranger coming into this community and doing that. And so law enforcement will look at that strongly. And then once we get into there, into this residence, we got to look at who was targeted and what was the order. We don't know right now which victim was targeted first. Now, there's been a lot of speculation about it's personal towards one or the other. But the most accessible and most logical person that I would be surprised if Ethan wasn't the first one that was attacked. For this reason, that if someone enters that residence, and I know they may not know if Ethan's there or not, but if you go upstairs to a third floor and you attack two women, and of course they're inebriated and it's a party house from what some people are saying, but the screaming, the fighting, the noises, because from what our understanding is from the coroner, is that it was an absolute nightmare horror of what went on in those residences. And I don't know how many of you out there have been in absolute chaos, close quarter battle. There's nothing silent about it. And there's a lot of screaming, cussing that goes on. Been there, seen it on dozens of times, and survived them all. But I was doing a job and had a job to do. And but these children, as they were fighting for their lives, it wouldn't be something that you would think that they're just, people don't die easy. They fight for their life. So if we have two girls upstairs in the same room on the third floor being attacked and a knife fight, generally, some of the injuries, you're not going to last a long time. It depends on how severe they are. You can, 20 seconds up to 2 or 3 minutes. And so that what leads me to that Ethan was probably the first one taken down, because if you've already fought two other victims and then you get in a fight with a male, you're not what you was a minute before. Being in a brawl, even in these short adrenaline rushes, is still extremely draining. But I believe Ethan was first, Zana, and if it's other than that, I will be surprised. Not saying it's impossible, but I believe they were the first two victims. Now, were they the ones that were targeted? Could be. And that's how come that while they were being killed, that Madison and Kaylee may have heard it, may have come down the steps, one or both of them, saw what was going on, ran back up the steps, and then the was tracked down, overwhelmed in their room, in one room. And could one of them have come down from another room, seen what's going on, and ran to tell their friend? Don't know. There's so much speculation that could occur. The law enforcement would be able to go in there and look at these blood trails, because now that we have certain information that's been released by the family members, that the coroner is saying it's a strong weapon. It does, what is a strong weapon that can cause injuries that calling 911 ain't going to help. And that causes these gouges. And if you want to go online and look at CSI gouge injuries, prepare yourself. There's plenty of them out there. Of course, I can't show them on this channel, and wouldn't want to, for the fact that it's the things that are nightmares made of. And so, it's terrible enough just discussing it in this manner of what these victims went through, fighting for their lives. And that's something that no one should go through. And, everyone, thinks it's impossible for such things to occur. And what type of individual would it take if it is a single individual? We are talking about somebody that is extremely agile and strong. We're not talking about a weakling. To overcome four people, I don't care if it's just one after the other, which I don't believe it was. I believe that you would have, at some point, this individual was having to overcome more than one at any one moment. And I believe that's the case. But I'll be surprised if it wasn't Ethan first, and Xana, and then Madison and Kaylee later. And I know they're saying that one of the kids had more injuries than the other, and that they're the one targeted, and it was personal. That's another show when you start talking about injuries that are personal. You can have a lot of injuries to one individual that is far more severe than others, and it not be personal. It's just that individual fought harder. And so you could have that reason. But there's certain wound characteristics that when you look at, that would individualize that this person was being personal towards this one. Did any of these kids have those type of injuries? And when that comes out, and if that is true, of certain types of injuries to certain body parts will show you that it's personal, which we don't have any indication that is what was going on. But if it does come to pass, then we can start going towards the line that, yes, they were the target, because it was personal at that point. But anyway, we'll see if we got any.
Cop Facts and Chris is in your chat.
Hey, Chris. Hey, Cop Facts. Two great guys that could do a lot for this community. Chris has, of course, with the mob crew, check him out, join, do whatever. He has a great community. And Cop Facts, I've got to call you in a day or two, and I've got to talk over some new information that we got on something. And Cop Facts is an individual, had a brilliant career, and has opened up his life by writing a book about that career. And not only that, but he does a lot behind the scene. I do a lot of running a lot of stuff past him, and he's a very wise individual, and I appreciate him a lot. All right. But if you have any information about this, like I said, call law enforcement, let them know what's going on. Tip it in. The phone number here is 208-883-7054 was the new one I saw today. The other one has changed from what it was a few weeks ago. So this is the newest phone number that I have. All right.
All right. So I'm going to start with questions, and then time permitting, we will do some comments out there. Let's see here. Beyond the drilling, there's some drilling. Okay. So 8:30. This is 30.
Well, I want to thank everybody that came tonight, and we appreciate it so much because it means a lot to us. And we got some more code case stuff that we're working on. And anyway, what we got?
All right. And this is sort of rumor-ish.
Okay.
Oh no, I just clicked out of it. Oh my gosh. Hold on a minute. I'm gonna go back and get it. Talked about something being on channel 4.
Oh yeah, the 4
I'll
channel.
have to go get it.
Okay.
I'll find it. Okay. Single Mama 4. Can the house have been targeted, or is there no such thing?
It would be more of who's in the residence. To be for a individual that has a reason to kill someone is not so much locational unless you're just a random. And the isolation of this house, and it's not that it's isolated, it's just that it's such a random house in the middle of a community that is out with thousands of houses. It's more that if you bring a knife and you're going into a residence to commit a certain crime, what have you been doing? Have you been stalking? When did you cross? When did you start targeting these individuals? What relationship have you with this part and these individuals? So not so much towards a residence, but towards individuals is the reasons that people are killed. Is revenge? What part of fantasies have they got with these individuals? Is it some type of jealousy? There's a lot of reasons of why people kill people, and which ones for these we don't know.
Okay. And Perry, UK True Crime. Who lived there previously?
Law enforcement will know who lived there previously. Not only that, but who lived in the surrounding residences. And I know you're talking about who lived with them previously. Law enforcement will be doing that. They'll be part of victimology, but they'll also be doing a neighborhood canvass of all the rental properties of how long did these 4 victims visit or live within this household, because Ethan, he was just spending the night that night. But they will be looking at who also that lived in the community prior to, what relationships did they have with any of these victims, and identifying a lot of people. I mean, there's going to be, the workload of the investigation in a college town is going to be absolutely unbelievable of how many different persons they'll have to look at.
And Jennifer Rochelle, thank you so much for the automated night bot. The longer this goes unsolved, the more I believe it's not an ex or a known person to the victims. What do you think at True Crime Web?
I'm going more towards that. It almost has to be for the fact of where the house is located. And now, were they well known to each other? No, you could have that. Any of these victims, especially the 3 girls or more, you've got that night, you have 6 people within that household. And would the offender, who was he and when did he pay notice, and when did this residence come to be something that he would started paying attention to? And in his fantasy world, he would know them. Now, they may not know him very well, but he knows them very well. It's, I know that's kind of odd, but Michelle Nicholas, Super Sticker, $4. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank
Appreciate
you
your
so
support.
much.
Yeah, like I said, a lot of these people, these psychopath, narcissists, they live in a world, whereas they may think that your relationship with them is something that is long term, best friends, and you don't even know their name. It doesn't mean it's just simple that it's not what you, the victim, think. It's what that offender thinks of your relationship. And you have very little ability to negotiate and talk about what the actual relationship is. It's what they think it is. Um, Mob Crew, Super Stick Fire. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate that. But it's totally what that offender thinks your relationship is. Uh, he, they could care less what you thought it is. They're not going to pay attention to your no, no, no. That's not what I want. This isn't the relationship I want. It means nothing to them. Might anger them. And is that the catalyst that put them over the edge? Could have been.
Your dog's barking.
Yeah, we have dogs.
Digital. Will LE announce when or if they identify the white car and its occupants?
I believe they would to take those that once they satisfy themselves that they have the right vehicle and they have the right information. I believe they would take that off the table for the fact that they won't focus on and they don't want people to be filing information they don't need to file anymore.
Single Mama 4. What makes someone target something or somebody?
Well, I mean, like I say, it's a fantasy, and what drives that sick mind to focus upon someone? We may all at some point in our lives cross paths with these. And you got to think about some of your past relationships and friends that you had, and some people that would just push their relationship too far and might become obsessive. They make a lot of movies about that type of personality. And there's a lot of people that are targeted every year by people of that personality, where they'll drive all the way across the country. Just like recently, we had this former law enforcement officer drive from the East Coast to the West Coast and kill a family and take the child. I mean, these people and these fantasy-driven relationships, absolutely amazing, unbelievable.
Alrighty. And Missy at True Crime Web. Since Maddie and Kaylee's wounds don't match, do you think that means two different people or more rage against Kaylee?
And that'd be hard to tell because we don't know which one of them fought harder. I know we have a father saying that the wounds don't match. And we don't know if that's due to how much we fought back. What was her strength? Did she hurt or injure the offender and make him a little bit more angry? Or was it due to, and it is actually personal. And the personal, like I said, would be different types of characteristic wounds to different parts of the body that wouldn't just be normal defensive wounds, normal attack wounds. It would be of something that might be fantasy driven. And that will come out at some point. It's horrible to think about.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
I swallowed wrong.
And Laura, welcome. She came over from Cop Fact, so we're glad you're with us.
Thank you.
Is this like a house built on level land, so it's not necessarily 3 stories, but it dips down to the basement level and there is an entrance exit?
All right. The parking area you can pull straight into. It has a lower level. And then, of course, when you look at the side, you got that lower level, and there's a set of steps that comes up the second floor. And then, of course, the third set of flight stairs that goes to the top. It is a weird designed house, no question. And I don't know who the architect was. and why they built it in this certain manner. You would think that they would continue on with the and what add-ons did they do? It's just a strange built house. I've never quite seen a house like it. But they made use of the what property and what was it prior to being this house? I have no idea.
Now in chat, we've
Mhm.
got a couple of folks that say that it's backed up to like a little hill.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah. See that the first floor,
That way.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
the second floor is built up on the ridge that's
The ridge.
halfway up
Okay,
the
I
first
see.
floor.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you can walk in the back, the double doors or the sliding glass doors.
So the sliding glass. For
And
those of you, I'm not a fan of sliding glass doors for that particular reason.
oh no, yeah, they I think we've only had one place that we ever had, and it was a lake house that we had that had sliding doors on it.
I didn't like it. All right, you ready?
Mm-hmm.
And Cincy, I think they might have assessed the house from the kitchen window right side of the slider. Looked like they were testing the outside of the window for prints. Oh, there's no question in there.
Yeah. No, that's fine. And there's a screen that's laying on the ground. I think it was even laying on the ground when law enforcement left. For some reason, they didn't think that was associated, or they may have, for whatever reason. But yes, they would have processed if there's one of these windows you go in, and every window you have to look at from the investigative standpoint. You check for everything from spider webs to movement and dust. You look at fingerprints. There's a lot of things that might tell you that a window has been opened recently, and it just because it's locked at that time, that when you're there as an investigator doesn't mean it was locked prior to that. The offender, if he's highly organized, may gain access through an open window and then lock it for the fact to throw you off from that this is how entry was made. But law enforcement, good CSI are going to consider that. They'll look for the other telltale signs. Is there dust, spider webs, because you can look in these tracks of these windows sometimes along the edges and see where you'll have where the dust has been removed when the window was slid right, left, up, or down. And you can tell that, oh, this is recent. And but CSI, the training prepares you to check for that stuff.
And I'm still looking for that one that I
I'm sorry for whoever
unstarred, but I'm gonna find it before the night's over. I promise. All right, and Caroline, there must be 500 to 1,000 people within a few moments walk of the house, right?
Yes, right here. I mean, you're looking at apartment houses within within 300 feet of it. You're looking at several. You've got at least 2 or 3 housing complexes of multiple people living in these apartments, and so you're looking at easily hundreds of people that within a 5-minute walk easily. And that's the thing, is that when you look at this picture, it's a house that sets back. It's not on any first highly, that if you're driving through this neighborhood and you're taking the main road, the King Road is one street set back that's at basically dead's end. And so for you to get to this residence, if you're just a passerby or if you're someone that is out looking for a house to break into, or you're looking for a victim, or you're looking for something that is within your parameters of what you're looking for as a predator, you're not going to see this house. The only way you're going to see this house is being on secondary roads back behind a community that, this isn't a main pass through. So that's what gives me the thought process that this is someone that knows that residence, been to that residence, knows the people involved in there, and has some type of relationship with them.
Okay, I'm still,
She's still,
I'm still searching.
she's still looking. It's
All
going to drive her crazy
I'm
until.
gonna find it. It will drive me crazy. He knows it will drive me crazy. All right, and Jordan at Steve. This crime definitely seems personal. I think it had to have been someone that knew them and had a grudge. Oh my God, not a question either.
Okay, no, that's fine. But yes, it most certainly. And Jordan, I appreciate it. Jordan's doing a lot of work with us right now and helping us on a case, and appreciate it. And we'll get with you. Give me send me an email if you would.
And Dave, has there been any mention of spatter?
Yes, blood spatter.
Yes.
That
I don't want to get in trouble.
you're not going to get in trouble.
Okay.
But I mean, but they were talking about that. I watched the interview with the coroner talking about that. Yes, there was a lot of blood. Then when you talk about the gouge injuries that the father is relating, any type of knife attack, any type of gouging, that there is a lot of blood spatter, a lot of cast off. And not all the cast off has to be from just the weapon or the offender. As the victims are injured, if they have defensive wounds, and I know they said today that the coroner stated that the hands were bagged, which is standard. That happens, if you go in, you can ask cop facts. That's the first thing that when you get to a crime scene, that before you really even touch that body, and especially before it's moved, we bag those hands because we don't want anything that any type of debris, any type of biologicals, or anything that's on them hands to be lost. And so we got to get those hands bagged up, taped up, and sealed so that when they get to a proper environment and to the lab work, and where you have these professionals that's in there, that they're going to go in and do the fingernail scrapings and try to see whatever they can recover as far as someone else's DNA.
CD is in chat.
CD, there's another fine law enforcement officer. I'm honored for him to be here, and he also has a great channel. Y'all check him out too.
All right. And Molly at True Crime Web, do you think the perp would have to be very strong, in great shape to do that level of injury? So much energy to do that, or could pure adrenaline work for an average person?
I would think it had to be above average. You can ask any of the law enforcement and any of these guys that have wrestled or been in sports that it is to maintain a certain level of intensity is not just something an average person can do. And like I said, we're talking about adrenaline that it does kick in, and I've been there. And I've been to the point of almost passing out, that once you have that adrenaline rush, and then when it falls out at the end of that close quarter battle, that, when it hits you, you'll almost go down. But I don't believe that adrenaline alone would take a average person to this level. I think it has to be someone that's in relatively good shape.
Waiting on me again?
No.
Mm-hmm. Y'all heard that, right? All right, Joan, does it say anything that none of the females were sexually assaulted? Seems to me with that kind of rage, it often erupts sexually. Thank you for your thoughts.
And the vision, if it's a vision-oriented offender, there's a lot of different types of things that are part of it. It's just not always that it is a physical encounter to feed that fantasy. And can it be by certain injuries inflicted? Yes. Was there pictures made or anything? We don't know. We don't know anything about that crime scene. But the crime scene would be what the profile of the offender would be based on. And will we ever have the information of that? I don't believe they've released a profile on this offender yet. I'm hoping they do, because when they release the profile, they'll tell us something about the offender that we need to be looking at. And also, if at any point that they start conducting search warrants and we start getting those affidavits, much like with Delphi, that's going to tell us a lot about the offender and what they're looking for.
And Susan, so Mr. Steve, do you think it could be a situation like the Roden Wagner case? One target, the other 7 because they were there. I've wondered if E was the target, the others knew the culprit.
Could be. Like I said, how this person entered the residence, and we were discussing it hot and heavy right before the show, of that, everybody's assuming that it was an outsider that came into the residence, but could it have been someone that was invited into the residence that it spurred out of hand of due to them being drug-induced argument, alcohol-induced argument, or, was certain thing, did something happen, an insult, because we really don't know now. But for that to occur, you would have to have an offender that was a guest that brought a knife for an overnight stay, which isn't likely. It's possible, but we just don't know all the facts yet. And law enforcement will look at that. What type of offender could it have been? But when you bring a weapon to a homicide, it's organized. You're looking at an organized individual.
All right. And Cynthia at True Crime Web, sorry, this is a bit ick. But do you think that the assailant killed and left, or do you think they stayed and caused extra damage post-mortem? That is ick.
Well, and that's where what the father released about that. There were certain injuries done to his daughter that was not like the others. That is kind of hinting towards certain injuries. We just don't know yet. And if he did that, then of course, then we can start saying who was targeted and exactly what type of personality it is.
That's me again. And Lazy Millennial. Oh my God, that's good. Do you think the killer brought a change of clothes?
Lazy Millennial. I love that name. If he did, he's extremely organized. Now, I do believe that due to the amount of what they described from the scene, and if you're in a fight with 4 individuals in a knife fight, will they be blood transfer? Will you be bloody? Absolutely. And so did he have to clean up before he walked the streets again to get back? Did he have to clean up and get a lot of the blood off of him before he went and got in his vehicle, or he walked home, or whatever? Yes, I believe that he probably had to clean up some. Now, did he take clothing from the house that was there that he could wear? They'll look at that. They'll see if there's anything missing as far as clothing articles that could have been there. It could have been worn by a suspect. And we just don't know all that information yet.
And Nancy, Steve, I had a question about the vehicles they took. Can they still lift prints being snow covered or wet?
You never know. It depends on the type of, if what is the medium that is being transferred? Is it a bloody print to metal or to a car door or that is under that blanket of snow? And because it wasn't snowing at the time of the murder, so we don't know if they had a clear indication. I believe that the vehicle sat there for a day or two prior to being towed away. So that is indicative more towards that there wasn't any obvious bloody prints on the outside of the vehicle. So just by reason, using logic, you would think, okay, we don't have blade prints. But I would have much rather that they had processed all those vehicles instantly, in case that someone did touch them, and at least know who had contact with them from day one. And they may have. I don't know what all was done by CSI in the early days.
All right. So Chris went to go eat.
All right, Chris.
He gone. All right. So let's go see. 56. All right. And Lisa, what age does a male serial killer begin killing? And would this age group be a good target if this was his first time?
Well, it depends on what animals they start with, because sometimes they start with pets and they start with wild animals, and to develop their skill sets. But once they get to the that it is actual human, then they're there. You got to look at where was Dahmer in his career, and at what point did people like Ted Bundy, which was in the same age group, maybe just a little bit older. But when did they start with the Zodiac? But yes, it would be a budding serial killer at this age group that has moved on from wherever he started with whatever type of animals he started with. And now he has entered into killing humans. And if he progresses and keeps going, he's not going to go back to animals. He is now a manhunter.
Okay. Multitasking. Let's see here. And Ms. Sweet, are you comfortable addressing the dad's and sister's statements or anyone else's behavior or red flags?
I know you ask me, and I'll either tell you yay or nay on that certain questions. There are certain things about. I don't know exactly which statements that you're going with and against who. If it's I just have to ask the question, and if it's in here, if not, send me. I tell you what you do. Send me an email, steve@truecrimeweb.com, and I'll answer what you have.
All right. And I found what I was looking for.
Okay.
Too much mom. Latest rumor. Thread on 4chan between frat boys implying this was a result of something that had happened at Ethan's frat. Rumor, Ethan walked in on two guys together.
I hadn't heard that. And so, of course, once again, you have
A rumor.
A rumor.
Okay.
And we don't know. And if that's a rumor, it's out there. Law enforcement will have that, and they'll be looking at it and analyzing it and see what the behavioral science unit says.
Okay, and the mob crew asked, wonder what the source of the white Hyundai Elantra is. A witness, CCTV, or something else? I've heard CCTV a few times.
Yeah, I don't know, and that's
the one from
interesting.
The gas station, right?
Well, I mean, they did get the gas station I saw earlier today. They were talking about they had, of course, requested all the video footage they can. So they're going to try to identify every vehicle that came within that community, showing that it could be somebody that came into the community long distance versus someone that lives in that community. And that's how come they're going to be paying so much attention to vehicles, because the people that live within that community have no need to drive. They're sitting there. People there from other areas of town would have to have a vehicle to get there. But I don't know which type of system has identified that vehicle.
And Molly, is the second/third floor the addition or the first floor? This is an oddly put together house.
I have no idea. I don't know who designed it. Though just doesn't make any. The floor plans, nothing about that resident makes sense to me.
Okay. And Dave, are we positive this wasn't a possible robbery?
No, we're not. I mean, that's something else. I mean, they'll have to look. And is there certain things missing from the house? Were there trophies taken? Were there certain items, jewelry? And we don't know. But good question. Excellent question.
And analysis of a crime with CD. Hey there, glad you are covering Idaho. Too much nonsense being put out there as fact, along with some of the theories beyond ridiculous.
I'm telling you, there are a lot of theories out there, and the speculation. I appreciate it brings focus to the case, but when they start getting out there, sometimes it does tend to harm the case. So I'm with you, CD.
All right.
There's a fine line of how much attention you want on a case without getting ridiculous, and just trying to keep everything fact based. And it's so hard to do when there's so many people out there trying just to get clicks. Which CD has done some excellent interviews with people from that community. He has a neighbor, he has a contact there, and he's done some really good interviews talking about what's going on in the neighborhood and everything. If you get a chance, go back and watch those. Like I said, I watched them, and it was interesting listening to the interviews.
And Dog Defender, do you think you would feel? How do you think you would feel if you were active LE currently and having to contend with the press, but also leaked info, sleuths, online shenanigans, etc.? Do you feel it would affect your job?
No, you have public relations officers now that have training that we are in a new world. It's not like back in when I started or CopFax started or CD that in our early career that all we had was newspapers. And so you're just dealing with a few area newspaper. If it's something big, you may have the regional newspapers and news crews coming. But now with this, you went from having maybe 50 journalists that might cover your story to now that you've got 50,000 journalists covering your story. But as we begin to understand the web sleuth communities and law enforcement understands it, it's going to take a while, but at some point they'll work the details out and they'll learn how to use it for the best effect. Or at least I hope they do.
You've really blown some of their theories out the window when you said he brought the knife to the party or to the murder to the party. Good Lord. So you've blown some theories right out. There you go.
I don't know. But I mean, if whatever type, I don't know what a strong weapon is. If CD has an idea of what a strong weapon is, I appreciate it. Or CopFax. I just don't know what a strong weapon is.
All right. And Nancy, Steve, would you say the murderer or the narcissist type, it might have been ridiculed in some way that led them to take revenge on one or all of the victims?
Well, when you're dealing with some of these fantasy-driven psychopaths, yes, they do have that quality in them of being a narcissist that would do, that what your resistance is nothing to them, and anything you do to their world, if they take it personal, they're going to get you.
Single Mama 4. Cast off, is that what you said? What is cast off?
If you imagine that as you take you can go into your kitchen and you can take a knife, a fork, a spoon, whatever you want to. And although water doesn't have the same viscosity as blood. But you could go in there into your sink and turn on the water and run water over a spoon and pull it over to the side, and you're going to see water droplets. If you took that same spoon and cast across a piece of paper, you're going to see little droplets come onto that piece of paper. And I say do this with water so that you don't mess up the kitchen and upset
Yes.
upset Mrs. Steve due to that you're doing some type of synthetic blood test and it's getting over everything, and we have to clean that up, which I get in trouble for.
Yeah, he does.
The water won't stain, but you'll still see what these little droplets will look like. And that's what cast off is. Cast off is that if you're using a weapon on an individual, such as a knife, that once that knife is introduced to blood and it has blood on it, that whenever you pull it back and you're exerting any type of energy or force, when you're giving momentum to that blood-soaked instrument, and as you're giving it momentum, it collects at the ends and it gets cast off, and it creates cast off blood spatter patterns on ceilings, on walls, on floors, just whichever way you're moving, and you're accelerating those fluids that when they come off that weapon, that's what the cast off is.
And Susan, Mr. Steve, do you think this was the culprit's first kill?
It could be possibly human, yes, but or not. We really don't know if it is a budding serial killer. Has he killed somewhere in the area within a certain distance, or in his hometown? Is he a student, or has he killed animals? And it depends on what classification, how far along he is. But if he hasn't killed before, and as far as humans, I don't know. But I do believe he's killed animals before.
Joan, does anyone know how Ethan's brother was notified to be at the crime scene so early? He met the other girls on the lawn. He was there before police. Who called him? Did he call 911?
I don't know. And we have to be extremely careful with family members, as always, because, we don't ever want to go into areas of claiming or accusing because of the effects it has.
And digital, can forensics determine if an evidence sample is a mixture of blood from two people as opposed to blood mixed with skin cells?
I'm sure they can. I mean, when you get to the microscopic world of what they can determine of what it is and different types of blood types, skin cells are different than blood molecules, and so I believe they would be able to tell. I'm not in any shape, form, or fashion an expert of what it takes of people that work in that type of environment within the lab of those experts. So I'm taking a guess that they would be able to tell.
And Susan, Mr. Steve, what do you think about the incel theory? The guy caught up here was going to take out as many college girls as possible.
There's so many theories out there, and it's so easy to apply them all to another. And in profiling world, that's what they do. I mean, you take and you go out there and you study other criminals that have committed certain crimes that may have some commonalities in it, and then you start making generalizations that this is what happens when a certain type of crime occurs, and it's just general. There's nothing that says it is absolute, and it's best guesses by the experts of that this is more than likely what it is. I mean, would they be parallels? Absolutely.
All right. And okay, I've already done that one. And Molly, would it be the state police or FBI more likely to do the CSI and analysis of the evidence? still have 40 plus FBI on the case. No idea who takes the lead in these situations.
Out there, I have no idea. Here in Georgia, it's wherever the bodies are found, it's the local department that's within that jurisdiction. If it's the city police, they would be the lead agency. Now, they may be using the resources from the state agency because the state agency has the crime labs. Now, there are some cities in the state of Georgia that have their own crime labs. I don't know if Moscow has its own crime lab. I have no idea. But if not, then of course the state agency that's assisting the local agency in charge, if it's in Georgia, like I said, I don't know if it's the same out there, then it would just be the lead agency would be the local department with the assisting agency of being the whoever had the crime lab. And then of course, if you need crime lab and you need another opinion, you have the FBI resources to conduct certain tests if that crime lab doesn't have the ability.
All right, we got two more for you. And Nancy, Steve, do you think that if the killer doesn't have a profile in CODA's databases, that resources such as Parabon would be incorporated into finding the killer?
I'm sure they'll use it if they have a partial DNA. And then when you got all the other types of DNA, genealogical, how you say that?
What?
Genealogical. Ology or something.
Yeah, genealogy.
Genealogy.
There you go.
Type of DNA profile searches out there that, yes, they'll use one or the other. It just depends on how much DNA they have. And I believe they have DNA. If there's not DNA by this offender who attacked 4 victims, and we know from indications of law enforcement statements that some of the victims fought back, I'm confident there's DNA there. Finding it may not be that easy, but I'm confident there's DNA that these victims have of the suspect. Hair, fiber, something. They've got something from his environment.
And Anne, do you think LE would allow the dad's PIs to view the crime scene?
I would doubt it being as vocal as what the father has been. They're going to have to keep information close to the vest on that, and especially things that they want only known to themselves and no other.
All right, you are officially done with your questions.
Well, guys, I appreciate y'all being here, and I appreciate all the questions. I appreciate the support and donations and all our members and viewers. If you like it, share it with everybody, and check out all these other channels, Chris, CD, Cop Facts, and they all support me, and I appreciate it. I wouldn't be here without them. And there's a lot of other channels out there, too many to mention. But we just appreciate all the support we have as we move forward and we go out and we start working more things and doing more things. It's humbling. But anyway, we want to thank everybody out there. We want to thank all our mods, and we want to thank everybody in chat. And y'all have a great night. Stay safe, and we'll see you
Are
soon.
you doing your members tomorrow night?
What is it? Tomorrow night's Wednesday. Yes, I'll have tomorrow night. We'll have the commanders only tomorrow night.
And then back on Thursday.
And then we'll be back on Thursday for a show.
That's it.
All right. Thank you.
Love y'all.
See ya.